Hey guys, today I've got another commission build to show off for you. Bear with me, I did lose the footage from one of my cameras, so everything's going to be from one angle. I tried to do my best to work with it, and before we hop into it, I do want to thank everybody who subscribed. This is what I'm currently at as of recording the video, and these are the people who have watched but haven't decided to hit that button, so please, it would mean a lot if you're seeing this and you haven't subscribed. Please hit the button. I thank you guys for watching, and we'll hop right into it. So this here is the Zuoya GMK67. It's an ABS plastic case, has a polycarb plate, and some decent foam options, as my friend decided. I think it's a great choice. We're going to go with some cherry clip-in stabilizers I got from Canon Keys, as well as these Haimu whisper switches, nylon housing with a palm and a palm stem, and a 65 gram spring, and these Dysub PBT matcha keycaps. Some I've used in the past, recommended, he loved them, so we're going to go ahead and get this started. First things first, I had to open this off camera, guys. It was a little bit of a struggle. Those clips were pretty stiff and didn't really want to flex too much, so with a little spudger I got them out. And then we're going to go ahead and just unclip all the JST connectors. Make sure we're very careful with these wires because we don't want to rip anything. If anything happened to these where any of the wire or contact points broke, I don't really have a way to fix that because I don't have a soldering iron currently. Soldering is something I would like to learn how to do in the future and maybe not always have to stick with hot swap boards, but as of right now, that's kind of the situation I am in. So being careful to make sure we take these things out, gives you a little bit of struggle, but patience is key. Don't get frustrated if you do. I've had to do it, walk away, give it some time, come back, let those fingers rest, and make sure we do everything nice and slow, just so the process ends up coming out with a good result. In here you see the battery. This is a 3000 milliamp hour battery. My friend who commissioned this is asking me to build this, not for him, but it's going to be a gift to his girlfriend. So there's a couple things she wanted to make sure, or he wanted to make sure she had with this. One of them was going to be that it was both wired and wireless. 3000 milliamp hours should be plenty for her to use it on the go. And the silent switches, this is going to be more of a work thing. So something that's a little quieter if she's ever in the office, doesn't have to be making a loud noise, a lot of ruckus. And those are some of the things that we got. The knob was a plus, he said, maybe she could use it in some of the tasks she's doing on the computer. So overall I think this was a good choice. Here, taking everything apart, you see there's a lot of lube leaking through on these stabilizers. I have used the GMK67 in the past, and while the stabilizers weren't horrible, I think they're definitely worth upgrading if you're willing to spend out the extra money. The cherry clip-ins I got from Canon Keys were, I believe, $10 for the pack, and let me tell you, I think it's worth it. I went back once I was done with this one and compared, and it's a night and day difference. The other ones aren't horrible, but these just sound so much cleaner. So now, moving on to the cherry clip-ins, we're going to clip the legs off. We're going to go ahead and lube the stems, and I'm doing this for all these, but I'm going to make it nice, short, and simple for you guys. Get lube on all the sides, a nice generous coating. After this, we're going to move on to the housing, and it's going to be the same situation. Get some lube in there, try to get it on all the sides, make sure that everything where there's going to be contact has some lube on it, because that's going to make the difference. Let me just go ahead and slide them in. Remember, 2 holes facing the front where the wire's going in. And then I like to use some dielectric grease. You could use whatever lube you were using for the housings themselves. Slide them in, make sure they work. Go once in, then another time past the bend is how I like to do it. And we're done. You can go ahead and I'm going to use some alcohol with some paper towel. Try to get some of the residue off. It's always going to be a little stained. That's what most lubes do to these PCBs. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, nobody's going to see it. It's more of a thing in my mind where I wish it wasn't that way. Go ahead, I'm going to put on this pour-on switch foam and then put the stabilizers in on top of this. This is my first time using cherry clip-ins. They're a little different than how you would put in most other clip-ins, but I think this leads to the better result. I think most other clip-ins end up clipping into the plate or into the well, yeah, the plate, I'm sorry. And these end up clipping into the PCB, which I found to be really good and give more of a sturdy feel to them. They don't really wiggle around as much. And this right here was the only issue I had with these stabilizers, and I don't necessarily want to put it on the stabilizers themselves, but most of these were very snug, which I thought was a good thing. However, the spacebar, I don't know if it is the Cherry clip-in stabilizer housings being larger than most other standards are, but as you see, these fit in just fine. They fit in over, but here with the spacebar, these don't want to fit in. So I had to do a little bit of modifying. I had to get a file and use some clippers to try to remove some of that plastic to make some room for these to fit in. I did that off camera. I had to get real up close, and it wasn't a pain. It just took a little bit of time. And even when I got it on, you can see it kind of bulges here at the top. When I pressed it down, it did line up with the switch pins and everything. So I figured I'd go ahead and move on. I didn't think it'd be that much of an issue. And in reality, it wasn't noticeable at all once everything was said and done. The switches have more than enough force to hold this down. And because everything was lining up, you know, this was more of a cosmetic thing as we were building it that had no real interference with anything in the end. So I'm really happy it turned out this way. If you're looking to build something like this, I can't tell you if it's going to happen every time. It's possible that there was some kind of small thing at the factory, or it could be this plate only that wasn't cut out properly. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't have enough experience. But with this being done, I'm going to go ahead and throw in these Haimu Silent Whisper switches. These switches, not my first choice. I'm not much of a tactile guy because I find that they can sometimes sound mushy instead of just quiet. And while these do have a little bit of that, I think in the end you'll see they sound perfectly fine for what they're supposed to be. Now, couldn't tell you if tape's going to do anything for silent switches, but I figured if there's any noise that comes from these, I mean, of course there's going to be noise, but how much, right? I would go ahead and just throw one layer of tape to kind of even it out and not have anything that's too deep, not have anything that's too light. Try to get it right in the middle for anything that is leaking through. So one layer of tape, clean it up. I figured that would be fine for this build, and I wouldn't have to worry about any other types of noises coming from this, just to give it a little more dampening, because that's kind of what they want. So this is a provided foam. It's nothing fancy, it's just some case foam. You know, it already has the cutouts in there. I'm not going to take it out. I'm not going to fill it with anything else. Might as well use what's in there. And we're just going to plug these back in, get them ready. And once this is plugged in, I will turn on the board just to make sure everything is connected properly. I didn't want to mess anything up. Make sure it's all checked out, and make sure these gaskets are lining up, because we want to preserve some of that flex. That's one of the main features of this board. At this price point, it being gasket mounted is kind of insane. Usually you'd have to pay a little bit more for some gasket mounting stuff, but hey, it's all good in here. And with that being done, we're going to go ahead and slap the top case back on, make sure it's snapped in place, and we can move on to these keycaps. So like I said, these are some die-sub PBT keycaps. These got off Amazon. I think they were around $25. I've used these in the past. When I built that previous keyboard, I was not making YouTube videos, but I think I did show it off in some of my earlier YouTube videos. This is a high recommendation for me for the 25 bucks. They're not the best keycap set out there, and you know, for that amount of money, you won't be getting the best. But for what they are, the legends are clean. They're XDA profile, which is kind of hit or miss depending on what your style is. But this is what we end up with. I think this thing is beautiful. I'm going to leave you guys with a sound test. You guys let me know what you think and how you like the silence.